Robert Joseph Cohen passed away last month at the age of 93. A native of Northampton, Cohen was an Army World War II veteran who served in the European theater and one of 2 Jewish soldiers in his company. Recently, Connecting Point's Dave Fraser sat down with Cohen's daughter, Katz, to hear the stories he shared with her through the years, including how he and his company laid communication lines for the Battle of the Bulge.
Support for GI Jews, Jewish Americans in World War II, is provided by a grant from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and the Harold Grinspoon Foundation.
He was drafted at the end of his sophomore year in college. He was young. And then he was sent overseas in the winter of 1944, February or so of 1944, and was assigned to an infantry division that was taught communications, Morse code, and then he was assigned to a wire team. And his team laid the communication lines for the Battle of the Bulge. Judaism was always important to him. He always identified as a Jew. He wasn't overtly religious, but he did talk about how there were not very many Jewish soldiers with him. He was a buck private, he called himself, and there weren't very many Jewish enlisted soldiers or drafted soldiers, and so there was an affinity amongst the ones that were there. And he talked about, in the audio that you can listen to, he talked about how much more fearful it was for Jewish soldiers considering being captured.
When there was danger of getting captured, I felt like it's going to be worse for me than for most people, and it was. A good deal of our division was captured. Jewish members had a tougher time than the rest of them.
He didn't talk about the war when we were young, when we were growing up. It seemed like that wasn't a topic that we ever discussed, and it really was more in recent years that he started talking about it more. And he told us a lot about the days leading up to the Battle of the Bulge and how he and his team, laid this communication wire. And when you think about how much we take for granted instantaneous communication, that they couldn't plan battle strategy, or they couldn't do anything without having the communication wires laid. He did feel that it was a righteous war because of Hitler and his anti-Semitism, and I think he had personally felt that it was important because of that, and so in that respect his faith played into it. For years he didn't talk about it, and I think that was very typical of many World War II vets, and more talk about it more recently. And there's this program called the Honor Flight, where they fly veterans from wars to Washington to see the national monuments for their wars. One of the things that was so meaningful to him, how much all the bystanders, as you would go through the airport, people would get up. The flight was at 6 o'clock in the morning, and there were hundreds of people who woke up with their children and came to stand in the airport with flags, and here were these World War II vets who were just reduced to tears by how meaningful it was that people were thanking them for their service. 7 of the best GIs in the whole damn Army, Huntington, Belgium, February 1945. My dad was Robert Joseph Cohen, born in 1924. He was a lifelong resident of Northampton. He passed away March 10th of 2018. If you had been 3 weeks earlier, you could have talked to my dad himself. He could have given you all his own war stories, and it really sends home the point that this history is dying out, that the World War II veterans are old, and their history is rapidly fading.